Hello, welcome to Dissident Canada. My name is Tyler. Before I begin with the topic, I'd like to point out I was wrong about some of my assessment with Israel and Iran over the last year. It may be due to who is doing the attacking. I believe in every time I talked about the potential conflict between these two states, I mentioned that if Iran hit first, they'd have civilian unrest to deal with. I still think that's true, but because the Israelis hit first, and quite damage assessments are still out, so I'm not going to assess that. But because the Israelis hit first, that creates a rally to the flag effect, and you're not really going to have what I predicted was a possibility. So they're still fighting. There's still stuff going on. There appears to be leaks coming out of backroom talks and channeling going on as of Monday. But also these Iranians publicly stating, "Hey, we're gonna hit back real freaking hard," and standard boilerplate stuff that you would expect. There's also what was I gonna say? Oh my god, I can't remember. Oh right, the price of oil is slipping back down to under $7 a barrel. Let me pull that up. Okay, it wants to. it was last time I checked before starting this. It was at like 69 something, and it was looking like it's down. So I would suspect that as long as there's not too much shit going on, that would continue to tick down. But because markets are not, they don't move in straight lines, it'll bounce, but make its way down. So, crypto markets are also something to watch. They have started to bounce as well in a positive direction. I started seeing that on Sunday, so that's just those two, oil and crypto, highly volatile with conflict. So just keep an eye on that, and you'll have a good indicator of how bad this conflict could get. So, topic for today is how fucking useless the Conservative Party of Canada is. All right? And it's not because they don't have power. It is they themselves are the problem. All right? My thesis is basically they would rather be second place. All right? Actually, you know what? I think they would rather be in last place and have no pressure to perform whatsoever as long as money kept rolling in. Basically, the Conservatives want to be the Maple Leafs of Canada, all right? They don't want to try, they don't want to do shit, because then they have the pressure to perform. They just want to show up, collect a paycheck, say some useless shit, and move on with their lives, and just keep that money rolling in. They would rather watch Canada go to hell in a handbasket than even attempt to stop it. All right? And proof is in the pudding, all right? We're now, a couple weeks into this current parliamentary session. It's going to pause somewhat soon. But what have the Conservatives done? Well, they did defeat one vote, the first vote, which should have been on the record so that it would have triggered another election, because that's what their constituents want. I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But all it is it says that what they want on the vote and what they snuck into the King's speech addendum notes things is, oh, the Liberal Party has to come up with an economic plan, basically a budget for the fall. Whoop-de-fucking-do, all right? Guess what voters don't really give a fuck about? The budget, budgetary anything, government spending. They claim they do, but it's not how most people vote. They vote based on, what are you going to do for me? And this is why economics is such a hard thing to run on, because especially from the right-wing perspective, is if you're running on economics, you're running on, oh, well, the government needs to cut deficit. Well, what does that mean in practicality is you are cutting services to people, and so you're not going to win those people who get those services, whether they, have earned those services or not, or, you're going to lose pensioners and so forth and so on and so forth, people that use those services because they use them. The only man who ran on the right side of the aisle and won those people was Donald Trump, because he kept saying, I'm not cutting. We're going to deal with fraud, waste, and abuse. And we're going to make America great again. We're going to get the economy rolling, and everything's... You're not going to need that shit because you're going to be making so much filthy money. Like, that's how you win on that. But the conservatives want to be like, oh no, we have to be fiscally conservative. Guess what? Libertarians have been running on that since libertarianism has been a thing. And they have yet to have any objective, positive movement on that. You've got libertarian adjacent people like Massey and Rand Paul in the United States who have seats in their respect in the House and the Senate. And yet, have they ever accomplished anything to lower the deficit? No. Part of the reason is people don't care. So, while you're here bitching about a topic people don't care about, you're not serving the needs of your constituents who want you to block, not slow down, block the liberals and the leftists in this country for doing what they want to do. And they're not doing that. Every vote should be a vote on record and should force the liberals to be on the back foot. They should have to run defensive action after defensive action after defensive action until eventually they break. Like, the objective should be to sneak as many provisions that are good for your constituents through in these bills. Like in bill, is it C2? I believe it's C2. That big omnibus bill that I was bitching about the other week. That it's just terrible legislation because it's, hey, let's rewrite a bunch of legislation, chuck it all together. Maybe there's some good in here, maybe there's bad, but once we get past the first couple readings and we need to remove some shit, well, we got to start from back to zero. So the bill fails and we can't actually get anything done. So why not sneak in provisions, horse trade, about no digital ID, or, horse trade on the bank regulations, because most of what I saw in there, I am working from memory. It doesn't fucking matter worth a goddamn about banks. Just protect cash. All right? That will go over well with your constituents. Represent them. They don't want to do that. You have the same problem in the Republican Party in the United States, as the Republican establishment would rather fucking lose, all right, than be in a position of control and take all the heat from actually having to lead. And again, this is horrible, and it's why, like, the Conservative Party should have died when it was facing its challenge from the Reform Party before they merged together and became the Conservative Party of Canada. Like, the Progressive Conservatives were shit. They deserved to be destroyed. And Reform deserved to come about because they were actually attempting to really represent their constituents. You could also say you've got the same problems with the People's Party and Maxime Bernier. Again, fiscally conservative is needed. Okay, I'm not saying it's not. I talk about government spending being bad all the time, but you can't win on it, and there are ways around that. You don't have to cut. If you can get real growth to happen, and you'll have to invest some money into that, you can also lower taxes, because once you get into the Goldilocks zone of taxation, you're making more money than you otherwise would have. Which it's not making. I know it's theft, but you ease the tax burden. You get drivers of economic force there, and you can start rolling back, regulatory bodies, because there are way too many fucking regulatory bodies in this country. So you roll it back, you simplify it, you make it easy, you neuter the shit out of the CRA. You could restructure tax code and how taxes are collected. I would do that. That would cost a lot, but you could do that. And generally you get growth, and then as you get more and more growth in the real economy, which is the private sector, okay, the debt to GDP ratio is going to go down, and you can use more money to pay off debt, because you're going to get increases in revenue, as I said. And then that debt burden goes down, and the economy accelerates faster and faster and faster, because that's how it happens. More capital is being put to good use than wasteful use in the government. And you get this exponential, or at least logarithmic growth, which is fantastic. And you can win on that, all right? You don't come out and sound like Milton Friedman. Because if you sound like Milton Friedman, you're fucking done. Or even if you come close to sounding like Milton Friedman, you're fucking done. Nobody gives a shit. They want you to do things. So say you're going to do things. Trump is very good at this. Taking, the express way Trump talks, you can't do that. And you can't really communicate the way Trump does. It's so unique. He has this basically kayfabe character that he's created to communicate to people, to be the outgoing personality of Donald J. Trump. You can't do that, but you can learn the lessons of how Trump got elected and recreate that. Problem is, you gotta fucking follow through, and you can't act like a fucking chump like Trump does sometimes. Don't worry, I once we are farther away from what's going on with Israel and Iran, and there's not just a buffer of time, but as more of it plays out, because we're still relatively close. I have in my notes just says go off on Trump being a fucking chump. Like, don't worry, I'm coming for that, because I respect Trump, what he's done. He's given a lot of people hope, but man, has he fucked up in certain regards. And I will go over them. But topic of today, not Trump. So, yeah, like, look right now, all right? Once the cock-blocked Carney from getting his majority with their legal challenge, right? That put an end to the shenanigans there. Once that happened, actually, you know what? The Conservatives should have fucking done that first. All right? To be fair, if they were prepared for the election, they would have done that. Because they know there was going to be some shenanigans. Or they should have known, at the very least. But besides the point, once that happened, their objective should have been to reevaluate as quickly as possible who should be leader. All right? Pierre got the closest to winning, no doubts about that. But he is still he and his team are fucking incapable of winning. I will stand by that. The only chance they have of winning is that the other guy sucks harder than them, and you can't count on that in an election, as seen by this election. But they should be immediately prepared, all right, with either someone else, and for fuck's sakes, not goddamn Andrew Scheer. I'd rather see Roman... Oh, fuck, what was his name? What's his name? Is it Barber? He ran in the last leadership race and he lost. I don't even think he's technically... He does not meet my definition of qualified for prime minister. Like, he is a Canadian citizen, but I think he was born in Russia or something like that, if I'm remembering correctly. I would still rather have him than Andrew Scheer, because Scheer has no fucking chance whatsoever, and is like, I don't want Andrew Scheer to represent Canada. That fucking dork. Come on now. But my point is, they should immediately have someone ready to go as party leader or interim party leader, whatever you want to say. All right, have a leadership race after if you want. Don't really care, but they should be ready. They should be in the background right now making their political strategy for an election that could happen at any time, because it's a minority government and Carney has serious favorability issues. Right now, we're going to be in this holding pattern, all right, of Carney knows he's weak and feckless for the most part. Now, he's still going to get stuff done, obviously, because the Conservatives are never going to call him out on his bullshit. And he's going to make deals with someone to get the bare minimum amount of votes needed for his government to continue, or there may be a gentleman's agreement for the next, say, 6 months to 18 months of, we won't put the record on vote, but you're going to do some stuff for us. That may happen. That may be already in place. But it's going to be, right now, from what I can see, it is going to be on the Liberals to call an early election, when it should be the Conservatives dictating the pace and the rate at what's going on right now. They should use this minority government to their advantage and wage a dual war in the Parliament and in the court of public opinion, which they are not doing because they don't know how. Like, election's over and Pierre's now talking about mass deportations only after it becomes abundantly fucking clear that in the United States, with the MAGA coalition, all right, which does extend into Canada, the groups who in Canada, or the groups in America that voted for Donald Trump this past election, their equivalents exist in Canada, and Trump would win in a Canadian election. Don't kid yourself there. All right? Maybe not after what happened this past week, but prior to that, Trump could win in a Canadian election with a robust coalition. Anyways. And it's because that coalition has its equivalents here, and you could win a massive majority government for over a decade with that coalition. I'm not joking. All right? You just need to know how to build it. And give each sector of that coalition enough to stay there, like that enough progress is being made. And then, 10, 15 years down the road, 3 election cycles, then you'll run into problems for being in office for too long. But by then, the situation in Canada would have changed so much that you'd be the radical parts of the leftists would be crushed, not physically, but mentally. They'd have to like regroup, and it would take a while for them to go as insane. So you'd buy enough time, probably. You'd get like a minority government of whatever opposition there is, and then if you got a good leader to come back, a good new leader, you could then swap back. So, but again, the Conservatives are not doing any of this. They're not prepared. They're not preparing. They are just sitting there and grandstanding and being like, well, I was totally going to do this other thing, and look, like, we need to do this, and look, the economy's a mess, and it's totally because of this budget. It has nothing to do with other factors. Okay, sorry. I always got to bring up that there are other macro factors in there. Like, if you look at the Canadian dollar, all right, which I have up, there is no good reason. Oh, that's the 5-year. I don't want that. I want the last year. There's no good reason, all right, that we should have reversed the downward trend of, say, halfway through October. Well, I guess that was the beginning of October. Yeah, about halfway, beginning, second week of October, into, say, February. We should not have reversed that downtrend. That should have continued, unless there's stuff happening in the background, and there is. I have a video of that. It is pinned to my Rumble channel, so if you're on YouTube, go over to the Rumble channel and check that out, of what the fuck's going on there and why certain currencies are bouncing when they absolutely, from the mainstream media perspective, should be going down. Like, I suspect that probably by the end of the year, the Canadian dollar will be either very close or at 80 cents to the US dollar. Okay? And most likely by the end of next year, we'll hit parity or damn fucking close. Even if the US dollar bounces a little bit on the DXY or bounces a lot, I think that continues. But I don't think the Dixie's going to bounce fast. There's a lot of reasons why people are selling dollars. But that's another topic again. So, seeing as now I want to talk about other stuff, I'm going to end the video. Have a nice day. I'm not entirely sure what tomorrow's video is going to be. As of yet, there's some ideas floating around. I do want to take a look at the treasury curve in detail. I am still working out how exactly I'm going to do that, because I really need to show the graph, and I'm learning some software, which I fucking hate software, in which I could show you the graph that I am currently looking at, and you can see how kind of fucked everything is on the graph. Anyways, until the next video, have a good day. And I guess I'll see you in the next one.